This is Melanie Standiford. It's Melanie, Mrs. J, and guests, and we're here today for our first ever podcast. We're talking agriculture, which we all know I am not an expert on agriculture, but luckily we're bringing the experts in so we can find out what they know, and then we'll know too. So I have Chris Miller today. He is a local farmer and rancher, and we're so excited to have you here, Chris.
Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for taking some time out of your busy day. I know are you getting into planting time yet?
I'm about 10 days away from planting. Soil's still kind of cold, so we don't want to plant seeds in cold soil. It just lays there and rots away, so we don't want to do that. So we're probably about 10 days away from planting anything on our farm anyway. Most guys are probably in the same boat.
Okay, so we had a little peak of, felt like summer the last couple days.
Yeah, it was too hot.
Now, I heard on the radio that we might get a skip of snow tonight, just a tiny bit.
I heard that too. Not thrilled about that, but, any moisture is good moisture at this point. It went from, fairly wet 3 weeks ago to completely dry. Probably worse than any time last year at this point.
Well, and we had a lot of snow, so I thought maybe the moisture levels would be kind of balancing out. Now, I talked to you about last year at the end of harvest, and we were fighting drought.
Right.
Lost a lot of crops because of that. So tell me what you're looking forward to for this year.
Well, right now we have to plan on drought because we haven't seen any moisture to speak of. The snow that we did have. We were so dry last year that it soaked it up like a sponge and just disappeared. And then, of course, the last 3 days with the hot and windy weather didn't do anything to help us. So we are planning on drought, which will affect what type of hybrids we plant. We're going all corn on our farm this year, which allows us a little flexibility with some of the traits that we can use. One of the cool things about the technology in the seed is they've bred it to where it needs less water to produce, to fully produce the amount of bushels or yield that we want. So that's a good thing. Hopefully that'll help the corn get up and get started. So
that's crazy
we can at least
that they
get
can
water
do
to
that.
it, right?
They can make a seed that doesn't need as much water.
Right, and 10 years ago, you would never dreamt that. It's crazy. The limits that the scientists push to help us raise better crops. I don't have the stats with me or the data, but it's very obvious that we raise more bushels on less land than we ever have. But it is, I want to say it's like 40% less acres than it was like 26 or 27 years ago. I just seen this here about a week ago than what we farmed, back in the late 80s and early 90s, and we're growing more bushels than we ever have.
So you're getting more yields with less land.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. It's
fascinating.
crazy.
So you're going to talk to me a little bit about soil today, right?
A little bit, yeah. So I got in. So I also have a sales business that I run. So sell seed, and now I got into soil health products, or biologicals is kind of the buzzword that we have right now. And so one of my colleagues with Syngenta was using these products probably 3-4 years ago, and he was talking to me about using them. And I told him, I'm like, my dad's an old curmudgeon. He's not going to go for this, but I said, I'll slip some on a couple fields and we'll see what happens. And I used a powder, a talc, to kind of replace the seed flow lubricant that I would use in the planter. And it's got some different enzymes and microbes and things like that in it to, kind of help the soil, help the soil be healthier, I guess, and to help release the fertilizer, make the fertilizer more available.
So it's all just kind of working together.
Right. It's all kind of working together. So I used it 2 years ago. Didn't tell my dad I used it, and raised the best corn that we'd ever raised on this 50 acres that we used. And, of course, he was pretty proud. He's like, wow, he had no idea. So the next spring I told him what I did and told him we're going to use it again, see what happens. And again, we raised the best corn we'd ever raised on there. Now, not I don't want to say it was 15 bushel better, but it was better than what we'd ever raised.
Any increase is
right.
a plus.
Any increase is a plus, correct. And so, my dad was sold at that point. He's like, we're using it on every acre.
And tell us the name of that again.
So the name of the product I'm actually using is called Humate DS. The company that I'm selling for is Ag Concepts.
Okay.
So they are based out of Boise, Idaho. They are a family-owned business that's been in business since 1982. Unfortunately, the patriarch of the company died during COVID. So his son, Seth, now is running the company, and he is a biochemist. So he does all of the biochemistry when it comes to the products. He does it all. So,
that was a good job choice.
Yes, it was. So so Seth doesn't employ any other biochemists in the company. It's him. So, so it's kind of like us. We don't. A farmer doesn't employ anybody else to do his work. We do it ourselves, and so that's kind of neat. So, Ag Concepts has a lot of different soil health products. They started. The easiest way to explain it is, we're providing a food source for the microorganisms that are in the soil already, which is a good thing. The microorganisms feed on the organic matter in your soil. So just like in your garden, you can use this product anywhere. You can use it on your lawn grass. You can use it, any of our products. You can use them.
So if you have a little kitchen garden, you
right,
can
absolutely. You
there.
can use it wherever, because it's just providing a food source for the microorganisms that are already in your soil. Now what we have seen that the Humate has done for us is it's helped release the phosphorus in the soil, which that's one of the two main things that we need as far as fertilizer goes to raise a good crop. The other being nitrogen. So the soils that we have here in the Platte Valley are they have a lot of high pH, which can be very alkaline. So you can have a lot, real high salt base. And then what that does in the high alkaline soils is it doesn't release the phos. So the phosphorus is in the ground, but the roots of the corn cannot get it.
Okay.
So what the Humate has allowed that to do is release that phosphorus, and that's where you see your yield bump. And so it was kind of neat when we did our soil test this year. We were looking at the amount of phosphorus tie-up that we had, and we were at about 127 parts per million. And I asked our agronomist to go back and see what they were 3 years ago. And 3 years ago, we were at 161. So obviously, the higher the number,
the more phosphorus.
The more phosphorus.
Right.
So the lower the number, the more we're actually using. So on another farm that we use this Humate on, that number, and you want that number as close to zero as you can get. So 161 is really high. 127 is better. But on the other farm that we used this Humate on last year, our parts per million was 5.
Oh, wow.
So we used it all.
Wow.
And that's what
So
you want.
Almost like breaking a barrier for the phosphorus to get to the corn.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All
So
right.
it's a really cool product.
Do you know the science behind how it does that?
I wish I did.
Not a biochemist.
No, I'm not a biochemist. They don't want to give the salesman kind of the science part of it.
Okay.
I'll be honest, most farmers don't want to know the science.
Yeah,
they just
that's
want to
their
know if
job.
it works. Right.
Yeah, you see the yields, you see
Exactly.
the results, so that's all you
Yeah.
need. Very good. Okay, so what else are you doing right now to prepare? And if you want to talk more about that, please feel free to, but kind of segue into the next thought. What will you do in 10 days?
Well, right now, we're getting the fields prepared, to plant. So which is what I'm doing right now. I have probably another 7-8 days of 12-hour tractor days, I guess, of doing that, assuming it doesn't rain. And then we have to get the planter ready. Being as cold and as nasty as it was this winter, I wasn't able to pull the planter out of the shed and get it ready. So I've probably got 2 or 3 days of going through that and making sure the planter is ready to go.
2 or 3 long days.
2 or 3 long days, right. I'm not a great mechanic, but, I know enough to get by. So
Back to what you were talking about, doing it all yourself.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. So you don't want to pay somebody to do that unless you absolutely have to. It gets kind of expensive.
Makes sense.
Right.
Right. And some of those you have to take to the factory to have done.
Correct.
Or have they fixed
Yeah.
that you don't have to do that anymore?
No, sometimes you still do.
Okay.
Or, you have the technician come out, and that's a service call.
Right.
And that's very expensive. You don't want that to, it's about double of what it would cost you to take it to the actual shop. So, yeah.
A lot of stressors, huh?
A lot of stressors. Everything, our planter is ran completely by GPS. There's not a lot of manual running parts on it. So if the GPS signal is not good, guess what I do? I sit in the field and do nothing.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. I just had a day 2 days ago where I sat
Waiting for the GPS
because
to
I was on the phone with a technician, and I knew more than he did about the issue. So you can understand my frustration. It was not a good day, but those things happen.
So somebody compare that to me. You have these giant tractors and no broadband or whatever out in the hills. And it's like having a giant a giant card you have to drive back to the house and plug in.
Essentially, that's what it is. Yeah. And it can be very frustrating. Now, our signal is much better than, what our cell phone signal would be driving through the hills.
Okay.
So, it comes directly from a satellite above the earth, floating up there somewhere, wherever it's at. So it's a much stronger signal. So, guys out in the hills don't lose signal very often.
Oh, good.
But it will happen,
Okay, kind of like it does to you once in a
Oh,
while.
absolutely. Yeah, it absolutely happens.
Now, do you get some interference where you're located? Is that one of your problems?
So, yes. So we are located just, southeast of North Platte. Of course, you know that. You've been out to our farm, right across the city limits. So the Walmart distribution center sits right on the north side of some of our farms. And yes, I do get some interference. The Walmart distribution center uses 51 different frequencies. And yeah, that messes with my signal pretty bad. But whatever. I mean,
so industry versus agriculture.
Yeah,
You're just trying
what
to
do you
do? It
do?
all.
So,
Yeah.
they're shipping some of our products, so I guess I can't get too mad.
Everybody's working together, right? Okay. So what else is going on?
Well, honestly, that's about it right now. We're getting ready to brand calves, which my dad and my brother have about 300 head of cows between the two of them. Most of them will all have had their babies by Saturday, so we're going to do that. No, wait a minute, that'll be next Saturday, the 22nd. So that's kind of the next big thing on the list, and we still do it, pretty old school. We'll have a team of ropers and guys to come wrestle the calves and do all that. I most likely won't get involved in that much because I'm still getting ready to plant corn and those kind of things.
More on the planting side of things,
right? So, but if I'm needed, then I'll jump in there. But that's not really my thing. But, like I said, that's kind of the next thing up.
All right. Okay. So what are you recommending to folks when they're getting out there and getting ready to get started? Now, you told me you have the sales and stuff. You want to talk about that?
So, make sure you have the right products on the right acre. That's the main thing. When I say that, and most guys at this point, they're probably not going to get any seed sales at this point. Most guys probably do, but you always want to make sure you have the right product on the right acre. Our hybrids have gotten, especially on the corn side, so specific to soil types that it's really easy to have a disaster. And guess who gets blamed for the disaster?
The salesman.
The salesman gets blamed for the disaster. So it's kind of unique as a producer, as well as a salesman. I know both sides of that, but to try to explain that to a farmer, that usually doesn't go real well. But so make sure you have, the right products on the right acre. Make sure you have enough seed. And then, there's all kinds of things out there as far as fertilizers go, which most guys will have that bought now. And then on the biological side, it's really starting to take off. Make sure you're using a company that you trust. Or make sure you're going to use somebody that you trust.
How do you know if you can trust them? Is that just a gut instinct?
It's a gut instinct,
using the same person over and over?
I'll tell you how I do it. Since I am a producer as well, I will not try and sell something that I don't use.
Okay.
Or have not used. And I guess that's where the trust comes from. If you're just going to roll up onto my farm, I'm going to treat you like a used car salesman. I'm going to look at you kind of out of the side of my eye and kind of wonder. But and I found that if I come onto a farm and say, look, I know you're dealing with the same kind of things I'm dealing with, the high pH, the sandy soils, the hard pans, all of the same things I deal with. Look, I've got some products that I've been using that can help you. And the look on the farmer's face when that happens, and it did. It absolutely helped me make sales this year. I went from not selling any of this to being on over 4,500 acres in about 6 weeks.
Wow.
Because our products are easy to use. I've used them, seen very good results, and I deal with the same types of things that everybody that I talk to deal with. So that's where you build the trust. And I don't want to deal with somebody that's coming in from 60, 70, 80 miles away and has no idea what my farm is like, trying to tell me what I should use. And you're going to get a lot of that on the biological side right now because it is such a new thing, and it's getting ready to explode.
I was going to ask, is there a lot of competition there?
Yeah. So there, we have Simplot based out of Hershey. They're also based out of Boise, Idaho, which they tried to buy Ag Concepts here about 5 years ago, and they said no. Thankfully. But then you have companies like Nutrient Ag, which we see them. I mean, I see commercials on late night television from Nutrient Ag. If you turn on a race, a NASCAR race on Sunday afternoons, Nutrient Ag is plastered all over race cars. Do you want to give your money to somebody that's obviously, making plenty to go do that? That's not something I would really want to do either. So be careful who you trust. Be careful who you use. Because not all of them are going to work. Some of them are going to, some of them might hinder you. And, you just got to be careful.
Can you tell me how it works? Because remember, I don't know a lot about agriculture. So
Right.
When the salesperson comes in, do they take like a sampling of your soil so that they know what you need?
They should, but no, they don't. You kind of do it off feel. I will tell you, I've been through so many sales classes with Syngenta the last 5 years, and never one time did they mention to me that I should ask the customer what they deal with. Never one time. It was always, how do I relate? I don't even know how to explain it, but never one time.
Salesman side
Right.
of it, yeah.
And that's part of what attracted me to Ag Concepts is, I don't even know how to really explain it, but it was more of, so if I come onto your farm and I say, Melanie, I know that you're dealing with, you live down in Curtis, so your soil types down there are very, you have a lot of clay and some hard pans and those kind of things. So if I walk on your farm and I say, Melanie, I know you're dealing with a lot of hard pans and your soil is very full of clay. What are you going to say?
I'm going to know you did your research.
Exactly.
Right.
So if I roll
trust is
in,
there.
right, if I roll in as a seed salesman and I just say, hey, I've got X, Y, and Z, they're this new, they're the newest fad. They're going to give you this many bushels. What are you going to say to me? You're probably going to tell me to leave.
Right.
Now you're a nicer person than that, so you'd probably hear me out.
you.
But most farmers are not. They're just going to, I don't have time to talk to you and move on. So, yeah, that's kind of the way it goes in sales, I guess. But.
Okay, we have about 2 minutes left, and I really want to hear what you are looking forward to the most for this next season, and what you're scared of the most.
Well, I'm scared of the most. That's a pretty easy one. Is the moisture and the lack of moisture. We can't control that. And as a farmer, you want to control everything you can, and you cannot control that. Luckily, we have irrigation on most of our acres. So that will help some, but we still have to get it big enough to where we can actually water it, because we only have one pivot. We don't have thousands of pivots like a lot of guys do. So that's my biggest fear is the weather. The thing I'm looking forward to most, honestly, just the challenge of the year, and that's the same. I'd answer that same thing every spring, because it's always something new. I have a neighbor that says something very similar. You never know what you're going to get from year to year, so you're always going to face the challenge. You're never going to back down, and you're never going to quit, because it's what we love to do. And he's exactly right. And so that's what I'm looking forward to the most, is the challenge.
I think you told me that last year.
I probably did.
I completely
probably
believe
did.
you 100% because,
So.
yeah, you definitely have to be, if you're in agriculture and you're worried about the things that you mentioned, you definitely have to have that desire to, fight
To
the
keep going.
challenges.
Yeah, you can't be willing to give in, because if you do, this industry will eat you up really quick, and you'll be doing something different, selling cars or.
Well, we need you, or so we need you to be a car salesman.
Well, that's probably true. Yeah, I haven't had very good luck with cars here this last month, so we can get into that off air.
I'll tell you what, it's just a challenge everywhere you turn, isn't it?
It is. So yeah.
Well, I thank you so much for coming on here. You know what? 20 minutes just flew by. Everything you
It
talked
did.
about
I was not.
interesting.
Was not expecting that to go that quickly.
It was absolutely interesting. We'll just have to stop this and just do another one.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thanks so much for coming.
You're welcome.
This is Melanie Standiford, Mrs. J, and guests. Thank you for joining us for our podcast.